There is something most people don't admit to themselves. You didn't ignore the red flags because you didn't see them. You ignored them because you needed this to work. And if you're honest, there was a moment early on where something felt slightly off. Not wrong enough to leave, but not right enough to feel completely secure. You noticed it, but you didn't stay with that feeling long enough because something else felt stronger. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how you can clearly see problems in other person's relationship but completely miss them in your own? That's not lack of intelligence. That's how attraction works. It doesn't make you blind, it makes you selective. You still see everything, but you stop giving equal importance to what you see. And once that happens, you are no longer outstanding the person, you are editing them. You are keeping the part that feel good and quietly minimizing the part you that don't. And here's what it becomes dangerous. The more you like someone, the more you start protecting them from your own judgment. Not consciously, but consistently. Think about that. You are not just protecting the connection, you are protecting that your idea of them. And once that idea becomes strong enough, reality starts adjusting around it. Let's make this very clear. Two people can behave in the exact same way. They can reply late, cancel plans, act distant, say things that feel slightly off. But your reaction depends entirely on how you feel about them. With someone you don't care about, it's simple. They are not interested. But with someone you feel a connection with, your mind starts working. They are probably busy. Maybe something happened. I shouldn't judge too quickly. Same behavior, different meaning. So the question is not what they are doing. The question is why your interpretation changes. And the answer is uncomfortable. Because once you feel emotionally invested, your brain stops prioritizing accuracy. It starts prioritizing continuity. It wants the feeling to continue. So anything that threatens that feeling gets softened, explained, or ignored. You are not being fooled. You are protecting your emotional investment. Because accepting a red flag as real forces a decision. And most people don't want to make that decision too early, so they delay it. They wait for more clarity, more consistency, more proof. But while they are waiting, something else is happening. They are getting more attached. But this is where the pattern deepens. Because attachment doesn't come from consistency. It often comes from inconsistency. When someone is predictable, your mind settles. But when someone is unpredictable, your mind stays engaged. You think about them more, you analyze more, you wait more. And that waiting creates emotional intensity. Let me explain this in a way most people miss. When someone gives you consistent attention, your brain adapts it too quickly. It becomes normal. But when attention is inconsistent, your brain treats it like a reward that might come at any moment. So you stay alert, focused, and invested. Not because they are giving you more, but because they are giving you less unpredictability. And thus, unpredictability makes the connection feel stronger than it actually is. Now, here's the part most people don't question. If the connection feels strong, it must be real, right? Not necessarily. Intensity and stability are not the same thing. And this is where people confuse emotional activation with genuine compatibility. You are not necessarily drawn to who they are. You are reacting to how they make you feel in uncertain moments. That feeling of anticipation or wanting clarity, of trying to understand what you stand, that's not always connection. Sometimes it's emotional tension. And tension can feel very similar to attraction. Now think about this carefully. Have you ever felt more attached to someone after they pulled away slightly? Not when everything was going well, but when something felt uncertain. That's not a coincidence. That's your brain trying to regain emotional balance. When something feels incomplete, your mind wants to complete it. When something feels uncertain, your mind wants to resolve it. So instead of stepping back, you lean in. You try harder, you think more, you invest more. And during that process, red flags don't feel like warnings. They feel like obstacles, something you need to understand or fix in order to restore the connection. And this is where the shift becomes personal. Because now it's not just about them, it's about what connection represents to you. Letting go doesn't feel like losing a person, it feels like losing a possibility. The version of the future your mind quietly started building, and that imagined future becomes powerful. Not because it's real, but because it feels real. Your brain doesn't clearly separate imagined emotional outcomes from actual ones. If something feels meaningful in your mind, it carries weight, even if it hasn't happened. So when reality starts contradicting that imagined version, there is tension. And instead of resolving that tension by accepting reality, most people try to preserve the imagined version. They focus on the good moments, minimize the uncomfortable ones, and keep adjusting their expectations. But here's the deeper layer most people avoid. Sometimes you are not attracted to that person. You are attracted to how they make you feel them about yourself. When they give attention, you feel chosen. When they pull away, you feel uncertain. And when they return, you feel relief. That cycle creates emotional dependency. Not because of who they are, but because of what they trigger in you. And once your emotional state becomes tied to their behavior, clarity becomes harder. Because now seeing them clearly means risking how you feel. And most people don't want to lose that feeling, even if it's unstable. even if it comes with anxiety, because something about it feels meaningful. Now let's go even deeper. Why do some people ignore red flags more than others? Why can one person walk away early while others stays until it hurts? The difference is not in what they see, it's in what they're willing to tolerate. And tolerance is shaped by past experience. If you are used to inconsistency, it doesn't feel alarming, it feels familiar. If you are used to earning attention, you don't question it, you work harder for it. If you are used to emotional distance, closeness feels uncomfortable and distance feels normal. So, what you meet someone who repeats those patterns, it doesn't feel wrong, it feels recognizable. And familiarity is often mistaken for connection. This is one of the most powerful reasons people ignore red flags. Because what feels familiar feels safe, even when it's not. Now, here's another uncomfortable truth. Awareness doesn't automatically change behavior. You can understand everything happening and still stay. Because understanding removes confusion, but it doesn't remove attachment, and attachment is what keeps you there. At some point though, something shifts, not suddenly, not dramatically, but gradually. The explanations stop feeling convincing. The justifications start feeling forced. The same behavior that once felt acceptable start feeling exhausting. And you begin to see things without the same emotional filter. And that's when clarity happens. Not because something changed externally, but because internally you stop protecting the illusion. You stop editing, you stop explaining, you start seeing. And what that happens, one realization becomes unavoidable. You were never confused about what was happening. You were conflicted about what you wanting to accept. And that changes everything. Because now the question is no longer about them. It's about you. Why did you stay? Why did you justify? Why did you keep hoping? And answering those questions honestly is uncomfortable. But it also where growth begins. Because once you see your own patterns clearly, you don't just understand the situation. You start recognizing it earlier next time. And that's the difference. Not avoiding attraction, but seeing it without losing yourself inside it. Now, here's something most people don't notice while it's happening. At some point, your focus quietly shifts. In the beginning, you are trying to understand the other person, but over time, without realizing it, you start trying to understand yourself through them. You start asking different questions, not who they are, but why do I feel this way around them? And that shift matters because now the connection is no longer just about them. It becomes tied to your own identity, to how you see yourself, to what you think you deserve. And once that happens, Walking away doesn't just feel like losing a person. It feels like questioning something about yourself. Let me explain this more clearly. When someone you are emotionally invested in pulls away, the discomfort you feel is not just about missing them. It's about what their behavior seems to say about you. It creates thoughts like, did I do something wrong? Was I not enough? Why was it good before but not now? And these questions pull you deeper because now you are not just trying to understand the situation, you are trying to fix it. And when you are trying to fix something, you don't step back from it, you move closer. This is why people often invest more when things become unstable, not less. Because instability feels like something that needs effort, something that can be improved, something that goes back to how it was. But here's the part that changes everything if you really understand it. Not everything that changes can be fixed. Some things don't shift because of misunderstanding. They shift because that's who the person is. And when you don't accept the early, you end up negotiating with reality. You start believing that if the person say the right thing, act the right way, or give enough time, things will return to how they felt in the beginning. But the beginning is not always a stable reference point. It's often a temporary alignment. And when that alignment fades, what's left is a consistent pattern. Now, here's a question most people avoid asking themselves. If this person behaved the right way they do now, from the very beginning, would you still feel the same connection? Or did your feeling grow based on a version of them that didn't last? The question is uncomfortable because it challenges the foundation of the attachment. It forces you to separate what actually exists from what once existed. And most people don't want to do that because the moment you see that difference clearly, the connection starts losing its emotional weight. Now let's go deeper into something even more subtle. Why do people keep hoping even when patterns repeat? Even when they are seeing the same behavior multiple times? The answer is not just attachment, it's something more specific. It's selective memory. Your mind doesn't store every moment equally. It gives more importance to emotionally intense moments. So the times they were fully present, fully engaged, and fully aligned, those moments stand out more. They feel more real, more meaningful, more defining. And the inconsistent moments get pushed slightly into the background. Not erased, just softened. So when you think about the connection, you don't see the full picture. You see a highlighted version of it. And that highlight version becomes the reason you stay. Because it convinces you that this is what it can be. even if that version only existed occasionally. Now here's where it becomes a pattern. You stop responding to what consistently happening and you start reacting to what occasionally happens. That's the trap. Because occasional reinforcement creates stronger attachment than consistent behavior. You are not staying because what they always gives you. You are staying because what they sometimes give you. And your mind keeps expecting that version to return. Now let's bring this to a deeper level. Why does your brain hold on to possibilities so strongly? Why is what it could be more powerful than what it is? Because possibility doesn't have limitations. Reality does. When something exists in possibility, it can be perfect, it can be complete, it can be everything you want it to be. But when you look at reality, you have to accept what's actually there. And if what's actually there doesn't match what you imagined, you have to let go of the imagined version. And that's difficult because you didn't just imagine casually, you invested emotionally in that version.